So I'm going to talk about synchronizing Stripe events. Actually, thank you so much, Cecil, for the previous talk, because there's a lot I'm going to be able to go through quickly, because you've been through a lot about events, and you've also even demoed webhooks. So we're going to go through the other part. If you remember in Cecil's talk, we're not going to use webhooks. We're going to use Amazon EventBridge, and also we're not going to use servers, so no Kubernetes. It's kind of the other side of the talk, so it's pretty cool that they reflect between each other. First of all, quick intro about myself. Thanks for the intro, Ben. I was a founder of a company doing some payments systems for festivals using wristbands, and this was like 10 years ago. And recently, I founded another company which is doing mobile apps for festivals. So if you want to talk music festivals or live events later, don't hesitate to come and talk to me. It's something I enjoy a lot. Of course, we can also talk about serverless. You can find me on socials at APU, and that's pretty much about it on me. I'm gonna check the time. Yeah, great. So what we're gonna do tonight, we're gonna capture payments in Stripe. We're gonna send them to AWS and then display them into Salesforce. We're actually gonna copy them to Salesforce. It's gonna be something which is pretty simple. Is when you're starting an integration. Any of you already had like an integration in Stripe running, even with webhooks? You can show me your hands, like if some of you are already familiar with this kind of topics. Okay, so I'm gonna go through this using the AWS, the Amazon EventBridge sample. So we're gonna go through 4 steps. The first steps will be actually getting the events connected between Stripe and AWS. So we're gonna use Amazon EventBridge. Then we're going to use a tool in AWS, which is called Step Functions, which will allow us to run a custom workflow. And we're going to use a bit of code, but we're not going to deploy any servers or stuff like this. I'm going to show you all of this. We'll show how to handle errors and how to monitor the process in production. For those of you who are not that much into technical stuff, the 4th part actually is still valid if you're using webhooks, if you're using servers. It's some stuff that you can do in any case. So let's get started and send the events to AWS. Quick word on webhooks. We just saw a demo before, so I don't have to talk too much about this. Basically, webhooks, on the technical part, you should know that they go over HTTP. So they are subject to failure. So the webhook might fail because you had an error on your side, because there was an error on the network. Sometimes between Stripe and you, there could be some duplicates. It's a tech which is already present on most stacks. So it's pretty straightforward to use webhooks and HTTP for everyone, but it has its limitations. Webhooks on Stripe, actually, they are pretty powerful because they have automatic retries, which are a great way of fixing issues. When the webhook doesn't get to your server, then Stripe will try again after a few seconds and then try again a few times. This will help fixing errors. It can also create issues if we don't do it correctly. We'll see this later. Amazon EventBridge. So what is it? Have you heard of the term enterprise service bus before? So it's a bus. So it's like if we've also seen in Cecil's talk, RabbitMQ. RabbitMQ is actually a queue. So you're going to have some messages that go in, and then some listeners that pick the messages. But usually the messages in one queue will be all about the same thing. The bus is a bit different because the messages are about anything. They're all mixed together, and we are going to put some listeners. So this is what a message looks like. Basically, it's a JSON, and they have different attributes. And when we connect a new listener, this is quite important, we're going to do it. We're going to define a role which says, okay, this listener is listening on the bus, but it's only going to listen to messages which have this specific requirement. So here, the example I have, the requirement is that the prefix of the source is aws.partner/stripe.com. So it would match the message which is on the top, because it's a message which is coming from Stripe. So we could have messages from lots of people in the bus. Here, we're only going to pick messages from Stripe with this specific rule. So we're going to try and demonstrate this. I'm doing all of this in live, so I hope it works. This is my Stripe account, and I'm going to go to the webhooks tab in the workbench to do my setup. We did this part just before with Cecil, so I can go quickly. I can pick that we want data from my account. I'm not gonna pick all events because I listened correctly. And I'm still gonna pick a lot of events because they're really cool. And there's 8 of them. Yeah. So I have all the payment intent events. We're not going to need them, but I'm still picking all of this. And this is the part which is important. Instead of picking a webhook, we're going to go for EventBridge. So I'll pick the second option. And here I am asked for the AWS account ID. So I already signed on to my account here. I can go on the top right and copy the account ID. It's a test account for those who are watching. And I can copy paste it here, put the region, which is EU West 1. It will just generate a name and description, and I create the destination. Now we have this big banner on the top, you can see, which says that we need to associate the partner event source. So we're going to do this. I go to the EventBridge console on AWS. I go to the partner event source place, and there, I'm quite lucky, it's working. There's this pending connection, which is displayed here. So I'm just gonna click on it and associate it and click here. So now it's active. If I go to event buses, I can see it's showing up here. So I have an event bus on my AWS account, which is receiving the events that are sent to my Stripe destinations. So it's the 8 events that I picked from the list. So now to show the whole EventBridge process, I'm going to create a rule. And to avoid any confusion about what's happening behind and make it simple, I'm going to create a rule which we're just going to use to display the messages. So I'm going to call it logger. I'm going to say that it's from the EventBridge. We're going to say it's I'm going to just check something. Yeah, it was right on checking. So I need to pick the correct event bus here. Create the rule. Next, logger. And here we have to write the rule. And if you're a bit lazy or you don't have the time to write everything, you can just use this values from the select and it will write the rule. So I'm taking from the Stripe source all the events that are available. So it's the rule I showed you just before. I'm going to save it. And what am I going to do? So we create a rule. We are putting the filter that we want to apply to the messages. And then we choose what do we want to do with the messages that match this rule. And so I'm going to use a service from AWS, which is called CloudWatch. And CloudWatch is just, you can just send logs to it, just like lines of text. And so I will pick a log group, which is called Stripe log. And we will see that it will just display the data that's coming through the bridge. So it should be, if everything works correctly, the events from our Stripe account. So we have the rule created here. I'm going to go back to my account. I'm going to create a payment. I could also use Stripe trigger here, which we show previously, which was really cool. But I'm prepared with these ones. So we have this 26 euro payment. And if I go to CloudWatch on my account, I can see that we have something happening. And if I open here, we can see that we have 2 messages displayed. Here you can see that there's a payment intent created message, and then we have a payment intent succeeded message, which seems normal because we just created a payment. So these 2 events were sent, and we matched all messages. So all messages, whatever the type, are sent to the log group. So going back here, I'm gonna go to the next step. Summary of what we just did. I'm gonna go to the next step. So instead of just showing the messages, we're actually gonna do something with them. So we're gonna have a piece of code which is gonna send the messages, the data, and create the objects that we need on Salesforce. And for this, we're gonna use step functions. Step functions is service which is part of the serverless tools that are available at AWS. Is anyone familiar with the serverless term? Okay, lots of heads noting. That's cool. I love serverless stuff, so I'd love to discuss it later. I'm gonna try and not talk too much about it. So it's a lot of services which are really managed by Amazon. You don't have to manage servers. You don't have to manage virtual machines. They will just provide you a service. They will say the service does that. So it's limited to what the documentation say. You cannot like go further, but what they provide you, it just works. You don't have to scale it. You don't have to know how the operating system works or anything. And I even put a small diagram here. So this is from Frago Labs. We have a serverless infrastructure, and it's an example just after one of our customers sent a push notification to 25, I think, 1,000 customers. And you can see just here, around 4, there's a peak in the API request. It's just people opening the push notification. So the app is opening up and it's calling the API. And just after this, obviously, we have like traffic on the API. It's going from a few requests per hour. And then in the next hour, we had like 400, 500,000 calls. And if you wanted to scale this, I would have to like be aware of when people are going to send push notifications. Here, well, I just provide a function to Lambda, which is the service to run code on AWS. I provide some code. I say, okay, when you get a request, run this function, and then I don't have anything else to take care of. So that's pretty cool. We're going to use Lambda. We're also going to use step functions. Step functions is a service which allows you to create state machines. So you can orchestrate some calls between different services. So you can call Lambda, which is the first one here. And it's also what we're going to do for the demo. But then you can also have some basic logic and go through simple choices and call other services directly. And you have a history, so you can see how each execution, each call that is done on of the state machine, you can see which steps it went through with nice colors and what were the input and output of each step. And you can see exactly if it fails, where it failed, and what was called. So we're going to do this. We're going to switch back to AWS, and we're going to create a state machine. Going to go for a blank one. Oh, I still have to put a name. And then we're going to you can drag and drop. I'm dropping Lambda here. So this is going to be it. I'm not going to make it more complicated. I just have to pick the name of the function that I'm calling. So I already created the create payment function. And this will be everything for my function. It's also creating the permissions by itself. I'm just going to accept. And there, it's created. So now I have this step function, which is calling the Lambda. So we could call the Lambda directly, but then if the execution failed, we would have to consider, like, do we retry? Do we want someone to manually go and check the input and output? Like, what are we doing? Step function will allow us to handle this outside of the actual code of the Lambda function so that the code could be as minimal as possible. And the code, it's actually here. It should be fine for you to see everywhere. It's not that important anyway, the code. I'm using Salesforce for the demo. So I'm using a lib package from NPM. It's a node function called JSForce, which is allowing us to call the Salesforce API. And so I'm logging into Salesforce. This is the first call. And then the second call is this one. We are creating a payment object. We're putting the amount as the amount from the Stripe event. So remember again from Cecil's demo, from Cecil's slide, you saw a full event. It was much better presented than in the logs before. And so the event itself has the amount. So we take the amount from the event. We take this try payment intent ID from the event, and then we just set some status that is mandatory, and this will create the object on Salesforce. We print the response, and that's it for now. So this is the Lambda function. Before I do the tests, so that this runs correctly, we still have one step to do, and we need to create a rule. Because I have my step function, I have my EventBridge where the events are coming in. We are logging all the events, but if I want the step function to be actually connected to the data, I have to create this rule. So I will create it here. Let's call it create. I will go for step functions. No, sorry, the source is Stripe. And then we can pick an event type here. So we are going to put payment intent, and we're only going to take the successful one. So now we have a detail which is checking the event type. And the target is going to be step function. And we only have one state machine, so we're picking this one. Next, and done. So now I'm going to go back to Stripe, create another payment. Payment succeeded. And now if we go to the list of state machine here, you can see 8:17, it's the correct time. It just ran a successful execution, and we can view the detail. We can view the logs here, including printing out the Salesforce response. So this looks like a Salesforce ID, so it's pretty good for the next step. And we can go to Salesforce, and we can see that a payment was created. So we have the full flow working. So now this is when everything works correctly. Yeah, we've seen the rule. This is when everything works correctly. What if stuff doesn't work correctly? So even if we're using Amazon EventBridge, we might have some errors. We might have some errors later in the flow. So for example, if the Salesforce API returns an error, then in this case, we want the Lambda execution to fail, which in turn will make the, should make the step function execution fail. Actually, if we try it right now, it's not gonna happen like this. So we want to be able to capture the fail state. So I'm gonna change a bit my Lambda, and I'm gonna remove the comments here. So you understood I prepared this before. And I'm going to throw an error at the end of the execution here. So now when the Lambda is run, so it's for those of you who don't know Lambda, you can see I'm just like live editing from the AWS console the code, and the function will be updated. I'm not running any local environment or anything for this. So I've changed the code, it's been updated. If I create a payment now, what will happen is that actually the step function will still be marked as succeeded. Well, it will not be marked as succeeded. It will be shown as an error, but we will have like, it will show the error and then it will stop. Another feature that we can use in the step function here is that we can configure a retrier for error handling. So here we have this retrier where it's going to automatically do some retries and with like exponential backoff and this kind of stuff. So we can put the name of the error that we have here. The error is actually called error because I wrote a throw new error, but we can subclass it to something else if we want. I'm going to save it this way. And then I'm going to run a payment test. Okay, and now you can see that it's failing the execution and it has retried a few times. So you can see that it detected that there was an error and it tried again. If you checked my code, However, you noticed that the error that I'm throwing it after the Salesforce call. So here, the Salesforce call actually worked. And so if you understood correctly, you already know the result that we're going to have on Salesforce. We have tons of payment because it's created one for each retry. So this is another problem that we can have when synchronizing data. We can sometimes miss some events. So if we miss events, we want to implement retries. But then as soon as you implement retries, you have a risk of getting some duplicates. And duplicates, they can be solved. It's something that we always do, but I didn't do it here on purpose. Duplicates can be solved by using some unique index on your side and using some unique IDs from the Stripe data. So this process is going to allow you to send all the data to your platform to handle the errors. But, and that's the last step, I think, in my opinion, even if you trust your code a lot, you still need at some point to reconcile. You still need to check the data that you are producing. And for this, like what I mean when I call reconcile, is to actually just like output the data from your two data sources. So you can, the most basic one, you can go to Stripe, you export a CSV, you go to Salesforce, you export a CSV, you put them together in a spreadsheet, you do a VLOOKUP, and then you see it here, there's a failure. There's a missing invoice. This is the most basic one, but like lots of people are not doing it and should be. If you have some data tools that you can also use like Snowflake, dbt, load all your data into your data warehouse and then sync everything. So in any case, I think you should still be doing this, even with all the protections you can have behind. That's it. Thank you very much.